Welcome to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Volmiller with Long Island EMDR. And today we are going to be talking about reclaiming your joy. So that is our tagline over at Long Island EMDR. And it's one that's really important and significant to me and my team. And I think the reason that for me, reclaiming your joy really meant it doesn't mean that you don't feel joy, right? Want to just clarify. It's learning to embrace life no matter what situation you are in. So it is learning that no matter what stressors are occurring, to just be present, sit with them, focus on what's in your control, and learn to love your life no matter where you're at. And that is so very challenging and important, right? Because it's really, really easy to focus on all of the negative things that are going on in the world, in your family, at work. It is just so easy to get in a place of feeling like I have no control, I have no power, I'm not good enough in any of these roles, I'm a fraud, I'm gonna be found out. It's just so easy in life to feel like you are not good enough, an imposter, a fraud, unlovable, or that like you have no control and nothing's gonna get better. And last week we talked a lot about how our brains are wired with how we're socialized and the things that we've experienced throughout our lives from childhood into adulthood. And our brains are wired to help us try to figure out what's going to be a threat, right? So if we think back to when we are, we're like cavemen, right? Or the evolution of man. It's about what is going to keep us safe in that moment. So our brains are wired to be like, oh, this brought up a negative emotion, or this put me in a situation that made me feel unsafe. Even if it was when you were a child, and that situation in adulthood is no longer truly unsafe or no longer truly out of your control, our brains still respond to those situations like they are. So we are really, really passionate about helping women and men just learn to live their lives without being in a state of chronic anxiety, without being in a state of chronically worrying about when the next ball is going to drop, and learning to just be, right? That's an actual thing. It's just like, oh, okay, that's happening, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a reflection of me or my life or my progress or my self-worth. I think in our society, there's so much caught up around external validation, right? Like needing to get that validation from others to feel like you are whole, to feel like you are worth it. And that's just, capitalist society. It's just how we're all raised, right? You have to get good grades. You have to be smart. You have to go to college. You have to be a good parent. You have to be selfless. You have to be all of these things. These are the messages that we're chronically told throughout our lives in so many different ways, right? And how do we learn that, we can be okay even if other people don't agree with our actions? We can be okay even if not everyone in the world likes us. How do you learn to do that, guys? How would your life be different? Truly, how would your life be different instead of operating from a place of fear and chronic stress and anxiety, right? When we have chronic stress and anxiety, our brain releases cortisol. And what happens when our brain releases cortisol is it puts our bodies on high alert. This is why in my life, I've always had chronic anxiety. Always. It's like since coming out the womb, guys, I was an anxious person. And what does that mean? What does anxiety mean to me? So for me, what anxiety really meant was most of my life, I battled with really chronically negative thoughts. My brain constantly went to worst case scenario. I need a plan A, B, C, D, E. And I will ruminate on something until I have a solution, because my brain is wired to find solutions. I don't accept no easily. I don't give up easily. I think that's just generations in my family. I was really thinking about this last night, guys, because we're super passionate about helping women in particular, especially, the professional woman who still feels entirely inadequate. Something I obviously, if you've been listening to the show, resonate with, or not as much anymore because I've done a lot of work, right? But when I first started in my career, I remember leaving grad school and being like, oh my God, I'm totally unprepared. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to be found out. I'm going to be the worst therapist ever. Who am I? Why do I think I can do this, right? I think I can do it because I went to school and got straight A's and I'm an intelligent individual and had all the qualifications to be a good therapist. But internally, no matter how much education I got, no matter how many clients I reached or helped or made a difference in their life, I would always account that towards some external factor, right? It couldn't have been me. It couldn't have been me because I'm not that important. I'm not that special. And I think that there's just so many people walking around feeling that way. Guys, what would it be like to feel like, wow, I made that impact? What would it be like if we could train our brains to see all the things that we're doing right? If we could train our brains to feel more confident, to feel more self-assured in our decision-making, to feel less guilty about just taking care of our own basic needs and putting our needs first. That's a pretty primary thing that most of us walking around Long Island today don't feel that we are worthy of having our own needs met, and that by saying no to someone else's needs is selfish, it's entitled, it's all of these things. And I am not saying be a narcissist and don't care about other people. I am a bleeding heart. I care way too much about other people. But what we need is a balance. You need a balance in your life. You need to be able to balance what you need and what's going to make you happy and function the best and be the best human that you can possibly be with what's going to help the people around you, right? And what's going to make the most positive impact. And sometimes you doing that favor for someone, though it might make that one person happy, it can have a significant ripple effect in your own life. Like, how many times, I know especially as a woman, right, so many of us feel responsible for our kids, our spouses, our employers, our parents, right? That generation of people who's taking care of both their kids and their parents at the same time. Going to see your mom so she doesn't feel lonely, but it's going to cause you significant anxiety, or it's going to cause you to feel like you're not going to get that sleep or that exercise that you need, or go do that self-care activity that really you need to regulate your own nervous system. That's important. And you can always, visit mom another day. It's okay to say no. This weekend isn't good for me, and I'm going to come another weekend when that works for me. And that's not selfish. That's just self-aware. Self-aware. There's a difference. It's not saying that other people's needs are less important than yours. It's just understanding that your needs are just as important. And that's a really hard lesson for us to learn. I think for most of us, especially women, because we are just so brainwashed to believe that to be a good, virtuous woman, to be who, everyone will aspire to be, that it just means neglecting yourself and doing for everyone else. And I operated my life a lot like that for the majority of my life. I'm only 33, but into my late 20s, I constantly just did what everyone else I felt wanted me to do, and really struggled to figure out what I wanted. And that really prevented me from being as happy as I possibly could be. So you guys have been listening to Good Enough with Jamie Volmar from Long Island EMDR. You can visit us at www.liemdr.com or give us a call at 631-503-1539. Please stick around after the break, guys. We have so much more to get into.
All right, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Sebastian. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right, darling. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Let's go.
Welcome back to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Fomler from Long Island EMDR, Long Island's premier EMDR therapy site. Today we are talking about reclaiming our joy and the importance of changing our belief systems to ones that feel good, right? Instead of believing I'm not good enough, believing I'm good enough no matter who likes me. I'm good enough regardless. Instead of believing, I'm a fraud, right? I don't deserve the positions that I've been in, and one day everyone's going to figure this out. I think of my grandma a lot when I think of imposter syndrome. And her story is really quite remarkable. My grandma had a high school education. She came from a disadvantaged background, and she took care of her brothers, even though she was not the oldest, and went to school and, got jobs and worked her way up. Right? She worked her way up in all these organizations. And I remember growing up, my grandma saying to me that she always felt like one day someone was going to figure out that she did not have the qualifications to do her job. She was a very big executive. She traveled all over the States. She was a project manager extraordinaire and did wonderful, wonderful things and was an amazing employee. But because she didn't have that education, no matter what she did, she just felt like people are gonna figure out that I really don't know what I'm doing, even though she did, she did. Just internally, she never felt good enough, and that played out for her and most people. If you feel that way at work, you're probably feeling that way in your relationships. You're probably feeling that way about your role as a mother, your role as a spouse, your role as a daughter, or a son. It's not just one area of your life that these thoughts affect. Like if your overall operating system, like think of your brain like a computer. If you set ChatGPT to constantly respond from a negative perspective, right? It's essentially what we're having our brains do. If our brains run on the operating system of I'm not good enough, every event that happens, our brain is going to interpret as like, this is happening because I'm not good enough as I am. It makes it really, really hard to live a life where you feel fulfilled. And the reason we are so passionate, and we have changed our whole model as a business. When I first got into therapy, regular talk therapy was really, really important in my life. It's why I became a therapist. It's why I am the successful human I am today. But it did not change how I felt internally, right? I had the insight to know these thoughts are really irrational, and I am good, right? Like there are moments of clarity and calm in my life where I felt great. But there were a lot of other moments where I was still operating in survival mode, and I would get triggered, and internally, even though I knew my thoughts were irrational, I would have physical anxiety. I would have chest tightness, my throat would close, my muscles would get tense, and I was exhausted, guys. Battling with your self-talk all day is truly exhausting. I've said that a million times, but oh my God, for me, it was just, I was chronically like a walking zombie. On the outside, it was like, oh my God, she's so great and successful and happy and chipper. And people still say that to me, like my life is just perfect and sunshine and rainbows. No one's life is perfect and sunshine and rainbows, guys. It's not. It's just learning to find the joy in it anyway. It's learning to find the joy in the little moments, like my son last night as I was putting him to bed being like, Mommy, I love you more, and arguing with me about who loves each other more in his incoherent, sleepy voice. That's the moment I'm going to focus on when I'm trying to go to bed at night and try to feel in my body that validation of, okay, I'm a good mom, and no matter what's happening, I have wonderful children, I have a wonderfully supportive husband, and I know that I have the strength to get through anything in my life. And there's a lot of things in my life right now, guys, that I could focus on and be like, oh my God, it's a disaster. And there are still times that I feel like, oh my God, my life is a walking disaster. It's like a tornado. But what brain-based modalities, that any therapy that's really helping you to learn how to regulate your nervous system. For those of you who are truly resonating with what I say, that, you have the insight, that your thoughts are irrational. You would never speak to your friends, your coworkers, your family, the way that you speak to yourself inside your head. Most of us would never speak to another soul. So with the things that we say to ourselves, right? We are usually our own worst critics, or hardest critics, I should say. And learning how to have self-compassion and how to have acceptance for your limitations. So I'm going to give you guys another example. I was at a networking meeting, and I, by the way, am a human that has chronic anxiety, remember? So I hate public speaking. It's something I challenged myself with this year, because it's important and I want to get the word out about the work that I'm doing. And, even though internally it's scary to put yourself out there, I know in my heart of hearts, my heart head, all of me, that I am an amazing therapist and I have things to offer, and that the work that we are doing is life-changing. And by me not putting myself out there, I am not able to help the amount of people that I want to help. So yesterday, I was at a networking meeting, and I have ADHD, guys, so I blurt things out a lot. Like, my brain gets excited about things, and in the meeting, someone was talking about being nominated for Best of Long Island, and I was like, oh my God, my friend was just nominated, and you should do this thing, and blah, 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 blah. And I blurted out in the meeting, and my mentor looked at me and was like, you should not be talking. And before, I would have felt like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. I've embarrassed myself in this meeting. Everyone hates me. I didn't follow the rules. They're all gonna think I'm unprofessional, like all of these negative thoughts. And to be honest, most of those initially came to my brain. The difference is that I have way more self-regulation now. It's a way easier task for me to be like, yeah, no, that's just his opinion, and if I have flaws, all of us have flaws. I'm not going to be perfect all the time. And so what I did, instead of getting embarrassed and shutting down and not approaching this person because I was mortified, I went to them after the meeting and was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just really excited to share with you this way that you can better your business and get more votes and make it easier and automated. And that person was actually like, oh my God, no, you're great. Thank you so much. Kelly over at Hassle Auto Body. They're wonderful over there, guys. If you have any collision issues, go to Hassle Auto Body. They're great. But I just owned it. I was like, yeah, this is me. I really didn't mean that in a negative way. I'm sorry if I offended you. I was just trying to help. And being authentically me and not feeling ashamed of who I am or embarrassed by the fact that, some people might find that behavior a bit out of line or inappropriate. And I do strive not to blurt out things, but I have a neurotypical brain and I'm not always going to be in control of that. So I'm just going to own it. I've learned a lot in the past couple of years of just owning who I am, and I have flaws and I'm not going to be good at everything. And that's why I have other people on my team who are rock stars at all the things that really are difficult for me to do. But just learning how to accept yourself for who you are, and for learning how to be okay that you're not perfect and you're not going to operate perfectly all the time. Oh my God, let me tell you guys, it's life-changing. It is life-changing. It just makes it so that you can feel content in your own body, and you can feel safe and good enough and loved, and get that love from yourself. Instead of waiting for everyone else to tell you how wonderful you are, I want you to experience just learning how to love you, no matter what your flaws are, no matter what other people think of you. It is so critical to living the life that you want. You've been listening to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Vollmuller from Long Island EMDR. you are resonating with this, please give us a call. We would love to help you. 631-503-1539 or visit us at liemdr.com. Remember, you are good enough. Oh, thanks, guys.